Hi, and welcome to All Things Rex. It's another Thursday. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad to have my guest here, and she's going to be with us in just a moment. It is Sassy Moen, and she has written, directed, produced, and edited multiple award winning films, TV pilots, music videos, commercials, specs, and web series. Her innovative and bold, confident style has helped her emerge as a pioneer in the genre of female driven comedy. And her latest comedy satire on real world events, Fear Actually, was released to rave reviews and won three Best Female Director awards. FX Network tapped her for their online web channel. This is okay, sorry, to write, direct, produce, and edit their online comedy shorts. She also won accolades with her rom-com web series about Abby and the feature film Weedland. So we're going to bring Sassy on. And I'm operating here by myself today without a production staff, so there may be a little bit of snafus. I just let you know. But here's Sassy, and welcome to the show, Sassy. We're so glad to have you here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So let me just ask you. Because people always want to know, and one of the things the Los Angeles Tribune and All Things Rex, myself included, are huge advocates for is for women to emerge as the powerhouses that they are. And in my life, I've been surrounded and influenced by powerful women, mentors who, whether they were acting coaches or teachers or whatever. But I mean, people have been prominent in my life. And you, as a female director, how did you get into all of this? How did you decide that out of everything you could do in life, you wanted to tell stories?
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having me. I actually decided this when I was about 7 years old. And I used to think that most people knew what they wanted to do because I've always known what I wanted to do. I found out later that most people tend to find that out down the line in life. But when I was about 7 years old, my mom told me what a director was, and I really love movies and TV. And I just thought, hey, that sounds like a cool thing to do. And I got started in TV production classes in third grade. I actually learned to edit tape to tape back in the day before everything went digital. I mean, it was 9, but and it just kind of escalated from there. I got to direct a bunch of plays in high school and continue making movies in high school, and went to film school, and it was just streamlined, the entire time. So.
Oh, well, that's awesome. So you've been doing this a while. How did you break through? I mean, in other words, what was the first things that got you some attention?
Yeah, so my first feature film was called Happy Holidays, and I made it in 2006, 2007. And I did it while I was in college. And the reason that I did it was because I went to film school and realized that most people kind of come out with the same thing. If you're allowed to direct, you get a 10-minute short with certain parameters, certain budgets, certain characters you have to have. And I realized that already it was tough for me as a woman because there was lots of cronyism going on. But if I was going to walk out with the same thing as everyone else, how was that going to get me a job? And so basically, I made a feature film that everyone, including the school, told me I would never be able to finish. They said it was too ambitious. And in fact, they actually gave us pushback when we first submitted just to use some of their film equipment. And we ended up proving them wrong. It was very challenging, let me say, because I'd never made a feature film before, and I had no idea what I was doing, to be quite frank. But the cool thing is no one else did either. So we all just learned together, made a bunch of mistakes, made a bunch of right choices. And in the end, the feature film ended up not only turning a profit, but it got online distribution and it was screened around the country. And it's pretty crazy thinking about, it was just a script I came up with in my dorm room the year before, and just thought, hey, let's make a movie. Let's try and do something different and big. And I'm really happy that I made that decision. It's very hard, but it's a good one.
Well, a lot of our viewers are going to be seasoned filmmakers and professionals, and then there's going to be fans, and then there's also those who are emerging as filmmakers, both men and women. Do you have any advice or suggestions that you would give right off the top, given your experience of what you just described, to those people who are emerging? Or those people who have yet to produce or direct a picture, what they might do and what
Yeah,
they might expect.
I definitely do. I mean, my main piece of advice would be to just push forward. even on my most recent project, there's always someone around who's going to tell you that you shouldn't make the film that you're making. And will say you should wait for this or you should wait for that or whatever. There's always a million excuses not to make a film, but you can hear those all day long. It doesn't change the fact whether or not you'll actually make the film and finish it. And if you know that you'll be able to accomplish this, or even if you don't know you'll be able to accomplish it, you should at least try, right? And the other part of that is to try and surround yourself with people who also are looking for the same thing. For Happy Holidays, for example, we found a whole group of kids. I mean, I say kids because I was one then too. I was 19 and 20, but we found other kids from Chapman, from USC, from UCLA, other film schools that really wanted to do something different. Right. And that's one of the reasons the film got done, is because everyone wanted to be part of it. So if you want to get started, I would say to one, don't listen to naysayers unless they're giving you a very good reason not to do it. And two, try and surround yourself with people who also are interested in pursuing the same thing you are, and not in career wise, but film, you know?
Well, I think what you just said is really important, because you're talking about all working toward the same vision, you know, harmoniously and coming together so that it ultimately, you know, sees the light of day. Where a lot of productions, people get high, you know, they come together, but they all have different agendas and they have different things, and it can be quite, you know, chaotic. So,
yeah.
So pick your crew and your cast really well, and make sure that they want the same thing you do, and that is to have that project see the light of day.
Yeah, you have to really surround yourself with people who take it as seriously as you do. I mean, because there's a lot of times, and even when I was younger, I did this, where you can get a friend to show up for a day and hold a bounce card or whatever. But those people, they're not invested and they're not filmmakers, right? They're not in film production. So it's really trying to plan and find those people through your planning and then make your project. And that's another thing. If you're getting started, don't like rush into it. Give yourself a good 2 or 3 month buffer period of pre-production to make sure you get locations, good actors. The biggest hang up I see all the time with low budget films is people just rushing to get it done, when they're if they just waited maybe even like 2 or 3 weeks, the film could have turned out light years better if they had more planning before they got started.
You know what my number one criticism of most low budget films are?
What?
The sound.
Oh, yes.
They don't spend a lot of money in sound design or making sure that they got a good recording, so it sounds more amateurish than it really is. Because you can have an okay picture or even a great picture and you can watch it, but I mean, I used to watch stuff on cable TV where it was fuzzy and, you know, interrupted and everything. But if you can't hear it, or if it doesn't sound, you know, right, it just there's something about it that drives me out, you know.
No, I completely agree with you. I've seen so many indie projects that have terrible audio. My dad is actually an audio engineer. So since I started making movies, even as a little kid, he'd be like, make sure to get that good audio, you know? So like I have always pursued that myself. And I work with a really awesome sound designer who I've had the pleasure of working with for over 10 years now. And his first production that he sound designed out of school was my web series. And because of that, we've had just a great harmonious relationship where we continue to work together as our careers grow. And that's just really invaluable. And that also goes to speak with trying to find the right people, right? Like keeping those close to you who you really enjoy working with, and making sure you treat them with respect and have a great dialogue as you go about making these movies. And yeah.
No, that's a great point. I also think that, you know, some of my friends were fairly prominent, you know, boom and sound recordists, you know, and one of the things that is so lost on people is the art of booming and the art of grabbing sound without interrupting the actor or, you know, getting in their face and distracting them, but also capturing the sound so that it sounds right. And there's truly an art to that. I've watched a lot of people in low budget movies, you know, you say, who can do sound?
100%.
You know,
totally.
And you talk about having a relationship with a sound designer. I mean, you know, so this is, you know, something that anyone cutting their teeth on movies today should seriously think about.
Especially on the small screens, you know, you need audio to carry your message if someone's going to be looking on a phone. Like, it's so important.
Well, and you do both. You do a lot of that because you've done not only feature films, but you've done web series and commercials and music videos. I mean, you're doing a whole lot of different things. Do you have a particular favorite storytelling mode that you like that you prefer over the others?
I mean, I have to say, of course, old school film. I do love a good narrative, 90-minute to 2-hour production. But one thing I really like about what's going on today is web streaming content, online digital content in general. It gives so much more room to develop characters and a story. It's kind of like my fiance and I were like, we watched Lord of the Rings, the extended version, and we were like, this is like a prelude to streaming, right? Because people want 12 hours of characters to invest in and grow and love and change with. And I really, really enjoy that streaming platforms today have allowed so many different filmmakers out there to bring great stories to people in a long form kind of way. So I feel like I'm kind of split. I mean, I want to say film is my, of course, like an actual movie is my favorite, but it's like digital streaming is amazing at the same time.
Well, I'm gonna say, I agree with you. I mean, I became enamored with movies when I was young as well, and that's what has always driven me. But I gotta be honest, lately I've been watching more web series. I mean, more television, because the ability to create a story or an arc over a number of episodes and then carry that on for seasons has truly, I think, revolutionized TV. Given when I grew up, it was all like Murder, She Wrote. It was all solve it in the in the episode, have it all done and wrapped up, tightly tied, in a bow and everything else. And now you can keep this story moving with multiple arcs. And I mean, it's just truly beautiful what's going on today.
Yeah, I think it's so cool, and just what it's allowed to happen for media, for cinema in general. I know that at first, like, a lot of people were very much against it. They thought it was, I don't know, like untoward or something, not classy. But I think that streaming has revolutionized film and TV in such a positive, productive way. I'm really excited to see like what happens next, because we've gotten here. So as humans, as artists, we only can keep evolving, right? So like, what's the next thing beyond streaming? I have no idea, but I'm really excited for it.
It is absolutely exciting what's happening and what's going on in the world today. With the pandemic and everything, we were lucky that we had Zoom, right? I mean, that we stay connected through the technology. Otherwise, we'd all be in our homes, separated and everything else. So it's to our advantage that all the technology. Now we just have to learn to use them,
properly.
In a properly way. I want to ask you about your satire on the real world events, Fear Actually, because you got rave reviews and you got 3 Best Female Director awards.
Yeah, that was really cool. Especially, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, tell us a little bit about the movie and about how it was to win 3 awards. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, the movie is a satire, and it's about current events and news, and kind of the pretense of the story is that monsters or scary characters in TV shows and movies are no longer scary because people are getting their feargasms from watching the news. So they no longer need to watch horror content because the news just takes care of all of that for them. And it's about Pennywise, the clown, and he's going through an existential crisis about what to do with his life now that he's no longer needed in this world to scare people. And it's about his character arc and just, the struggles he goes through as a demon clown. That I'm really happy with the way it turned out. The cast and crew was amazing. We did so much awesome work, scripted and unscripted. There's this whole support group scene in it that it was all improv that we came up with in rehearsals. And that was so fun to delve into with the actors, and winning those awards was also great. I mean, the one bummer, of course, was this was all during the pandemic, so I couldn't be there in person to win the awards, but I am excited about Fear Actually playing at the Burbank International Film Festival on September 11th, just in a few weeks, because we'll finally be able to go in person and accept some awards and just see it in the theaters, just because it's been in so many festivals, but it's all been streaming content, speaking of. So, I mean, it's great that it got to go through that. I wish I could have seen a lot of it in person, but I'm still thrilled for the opportunity and the awards that it's received.
Wow. Now you have a poster there behind you called How to Hack Birth Control. It's a fairly provocative looking poster there.
Oh, isn't it?
Can you tell us a little bit about that? And by the way, I want to welcome and thank all the people who are leaving comments, and those who are watching live right now can leave comments if they're watching from the Los Angeles Tribune Facebook page, as well as ask questions of Sassy. So if you have some questions as well as your comments, please feel free to ask. I'm sure she'd be happy to entertain them. And what is it?
Feargasms.
Oh, first time I've heard that word. Yeah, me too, actually.
Yeah.
And what I love about that is I love the premise of that the news is enough to keep us terrified.
Right. I mean, what's kind of crazy about it, before circling into how to hack birth control, is that we wrote all these prompts that the newscasters said, and almost all of them actually came to fruition. Like we wrote them as jokes. Like one of my favorite jokes in it was about how all the manatees in Florida were committing suicide because they knew they were going to die, so they wanted to get out ahead of time. And then this is terrible, but I started reading this article a few months ago. They're like, oh, the manatees in Florida are leaving and they're dying, and then we also wrote like one of the headlines about an absurd pandemic that takes over New York City. And then of course, the obvious happened. So it was very interesting seeing our comedy actually come to life. But segueing to How to Hack Birth Control, this amazing digital series over here, it's a comedy digital series about contraception, about women and educating women on how to get different contraceptives and how to sort of empower yourself. Basically, the way I look at it is that if you're lucky, you get to go to sex ed and maybe learn how to put a condom on a banana, but no one teaches you how to deflect a guy who's pressuring you not to use a condom. No one teaches you how to confidently check out at the register, getting the morning after pill or birth control. There are things that so many friends of mine have told me about that they've gone through just because they don't know how to get certain things, or they're too embarrassed to ask certain questions. And I think that with birth control, I really just want it to be more accessible to women. And the story overall, while it's a comedy and pretty tongue-in-cheek, is just telling women that it's okay to stand up for what you want and stand up for who you are as a person. That oftentimes women get sort of like pushed aside or told like, no, just be amenable to the situation and just let this guy do this or let this CEO do that or whatever. But it's about really just empowering yourself and saying like, this is who I am and I'm equal. And if you have a problem with that, that's kind of your tough luck, So that's the gist of How to Hack Birth Control. And you can check it out at birthcontrolhacks.com is the URL. And the trailer will actually be online on Wednesday, September 1st. So in 6 days. And I'm very excited to release that to the world and just get the reactions out there. We had a cast and crew screening this past Tuesday, which went awesome. It was so cool for the first time having other people experience it and hearing them laugh at jokes that at least I think are funny. And so it's always nice when other people also think they're funny, because sometimes you write something or you edit something and you're like, man, I hope that my sense of humor comes across here. And so I'm really happy that it did. And some of the subtle stuff I put in there too, people were commenting on, which is always so heartwarming, because it's like, I try to, with the series basically, is layer it with comedy. So it's like at any moment you could be watching something or hearing something or, seeing something, and there's a joke there, but there's a subtext to it. So you can get it on a surface level, and then you can get it at a level beneath that too.
That's awesome. And I'm going to ask right now, one of our listeners who's commenting, I'm going to ask Sassy for you to repeat where they can see it, and then have someone type that up into the comments so that it will be available online. Because I don't have the wherewithal to do that. I don't have my team behind me today.
I can type it in right now. I'll put this in.
Oh yeah, you can do it. That's fantastic. And while you're doing that, one of the things I wanted to ask you is it appears important to you for you to do female-centric content. So when you're done with that, the question that I would have is what is it about that? Why is that important to you?
I mean, it's always been important. First of all, you can go to birthcontrolhacks.com. So birthcontrolhacks, one word.com, to check out how to hack birth control. And it's really important to me because, especially when I was starting out, I remember just not being able to watch a lot of movies that I could find a character that I related to. So many films and TV shows, especially in the 90s or early 2000s, if they do have a woman, her problems were flighty, or she was just ridiculous or materialistic or just there for 5 minutes and she's gone. Like, they weren't actually fully fleshed characters that I could watch and empathize with and be like, oh, that's my story. The only one close to that was Sex and the City, which I feel revolutionized the whole thing. I mean, if you want to thank Sex and the City. Sex and the City is directly responsible for this, because I never would have felt even confident enough if that type of show hasn't come out yet. I'm not saying it's perfect or anything, but it was the first show to really be like, women have sex. It's not that crazy, which is basically what I'm saying here. And it's just important for me to reach other women, especially because, I mean, the film industry is still incredibly dominated by men. It's incredibly dominated by white men. No offense to all white men, but like there are other stories out there, right? Like I recently watched the movie The Women from the 1930s. And what was shocking to me about it was not only was it written and directed by a man, but the women characters were terrible. They were just terrible human beings. And the moral of the story was make sure to get your man back after he cheats on you. But that movie was revolutionary at the time because they're like, oh, it's only starring women. This is crazy. Will people go watch a movie that only has women? And I guess, they did. But now looking back on it, I was like, that was a terrible movie for women. So I think I just really want to tell more stories about us and show us as real people and show our real problems, because women are so often glossed over that it's important to show the world that we have 3 dimensions at the very least.
Wow, that is fantastic. And what I want to add is, my background is, I've been involved in the film business since I was a teenager as well, actually from an early childhood. But I did struggle. I wrote a story. It was about a man, his daughter, his son, and his divorced wife. And I struggle. I have to be just completely honest. I struggled not to make the divorced wife a cardboard cutout of a woman and a divorced person. And I really, it really caused me a lot of writer angst to try and make her a full-bodied, real female. But I did. At some point, I was successful to at least get this far, and that was to say that what she did out of love and out of positive intentions, even if everybody else misunderstood it, or even if she was wrong at some point. It wasn't because she was some shrew bitch, divorced, whatever kind of,
Yeah.
real, trying to make her a real person with real needs and wants that were needing to be addressed and satisfied. That typically. And so it was very challenging for me, and I haven't made the movie yet. I haven't even finished the screenplay yet. But the point is that it was a struggle as a white male to make this woman.
But at least you're trying. Like, that's so much more than so many people, right? The fact that you could even acknowledge that this is a struggle and that it's something you want to achieve, like, that's amazing. That's great. I wish there was more of you out there. There's some, but more would be great.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I say that the LA Tribune is a huge champion to women, and that's why we're so glad to have you on the show, and for what you've done. I want to come back to this topic, but I want to switch topics just a little bit to go back to the idea that the FX network tapped you for their online web channel, which is This Is A-OK, for you to write, produce, direct, and edit their online comedy shorts. So can you and can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah, that was so fun. They branched out to this online YouTube channel a few years ago called This Is A-OK. And I actually got one of my first industry jobs like 10 years ago or more. It was assistant editing for FX as a overnight editor, which was a whole experience in itself. But then I got to know some of the people that worked there and some of the producers and showed them some of my work. You become friends and all that stuff. And then they asked me if I could direct some content for them. And I mean, it was thrilling because they basically gave you like a carte blanche. They were like, okay, we just need something funny. Just go. And you're like, oh, okay, funny. Let me see what I could come up with. But it was really cool because we actually shot some of those while I was in the middle of making Fear Actually. So we were able to crew up for both at once. And there was just a lot of work happening in a very fluid time. I did run into some of what we just talked about, which is female comedy versus male comedy, as certain networks are more male-dominated, male viewers. And so some of that wasn't quite the right vibe. But besides that, I had an amazing time. It was a great experience. And the content that we came up with, I think is great. I mean, we did this Harry Potter sketch that was really funny. And it was right after my fiance and I had met, and he was in it, and he played Voldemort, and he had his whole face was gone. And it was like 1 week into dating, he just shows up and there he is. It's all Lord Voldemort. It's great.
Now, is there somewhere they can see these as well? Do they go to?
Yeah, it's actually all on my YouTube page, which is youtube.com/sassymoen. You can also go to sassymoen.com, which links up to the YouTube page and to pretty much all of my content that I have online is all there. So yeah, just go to sassymoen.com.
All right, awesome, awesome. So, very, very cool. I wanted to also comment on the accolades that you got about your rom-com web series about.
Oh yeah, about Abby. That was so fun. I mean, that I have so many things I could say about that web series. It was just so great. We made it 10 years ago, and it's a story about a girl who has been in the same relationship since the beginning of high school. So she's been in a relationship for 10 years. She's 24, and she and her high school sweetheart break up, and she's never dated before, and she lives in Los Angeles. So she basically is a cockeyed optimist going into these dates, assuming that every man she meets is also looking for the love of their life, and the Disney sort of fairy tale romance, which to be real, is not true. Most people in Los Angeles, male and female, are not looking for that. They're looking for many other things. And so it's all about the crazy antics she gets into with her sort of pigeonholed idea of the world. And then it expands as she gets to meet more people, and, her friends are there. And that was a great experience, and it did very well. It actually got picked up in Italy for streaming there, in Japan, and it played on buses in Mexico, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know where, because this was 10 years ago, but I remember getting the email and signing the paperwork, and they said, great, it's going to be on public transit in Mexico. And I even saw it with a little dubbed over Spanish, like, yo, soy Abby. And I was like, oh my God, like, you can put that on my tombstone, like, that's so cool. The people in Mexico are riding the bus and be like, oh, hey, what's about Abby? Let's find out. So yeah.
That is really, really pretty cool. That is awesome. That is awesome. So what do you think that female directors can do to be more respected? I mean, you're doing all these different projects. You're making inroads with what you're doing. You're winning awards, and yet, and is it unfair or fair to say that this past year or two or three or whatever has been more female centric? I mean, that more women directors are being acknowledged? Or
no, I think that's fair. That's a fair assessment for sure. Like post Me Too movement, I think to be honest, I feel that a lot of the work comes from the other side and not so much the female directors. Like, one thing that I have gone through myself, when I first started coming out of college, I got a great PA job from making Happy Holidays, which is my big break, and I got to get a PA job. But the economy did tank right after that, and most of my friends lost their jobs, so I was gainfully employed, which was great. But what I noticed there is that I would meet producers and stuff, and they'd be like, hey, what have you done? And I'm like, oh, I made a feature film, and it made money, and it's got distribution. Like, oh, that's cute. And then they turn to the next PA, who's a guy, and they say, what have you done? He's like, well, I started writing this screenplay, and I'm about 30 pages in. And they're like, hey, can you send it to me? That sounds really cool. And I'm like, what, hello. I mean, not that his script maybe does deserve to be read, but I'm right here telling you that I know how to make content. And so I feel that while there were, of course, people who recognized that and were super helpful, and I'm eternally grateful for all that they did, those kind of few and far between. And it's getting a lot better now, but I think it really comes down to people who are already established, acknowledging that women and minorities, that their story isn't something that isn't marketable. I've heard that a lot. Like, you write a movie about a woman and they're like, well, that's not as marketable. One thing too is that there's this idea like, oh, guys pay for the tickets and they pay for their dates tickets, and so they're like, we have to market to men. And I'm like, well, women are still working. We have to pay rent and mortgages. So, there's really no women staying at home too much anymore. And so I think that it comes from both ends, like women really standing firm with telling people who they are, what they've done, and not letting themselves get walked over, but also from the other side, just acknowledging us as equals, and that our stories, while are less told, they are just as valid and interesting as others that have been told many times before, that are sure to make a profit.
Wow, that is really insightful, and I think I would agree with you that the change has to come from the male side, and
Yeah.
Pardon me?
No, I was agreeing with you. Yes.
That I think the change really does need to come from the male side. We, you know, and men and the power keepers and those who are gatekeepers are ones who have to look around and see what's going on. It's kind of like wake up, smell the coffee. You know, you have an incredible.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's a whole world of content out there at your disposal. You just have to grasp it, you know?
And I also think, you know, I mean, yeah, I could be way off on this, but you know, the idea that men control the purse strings, like they pay for the tickets and they you know, there are more women than there are men in the world. I mean, you know,
right? Isn't it like 52-48 or something like that percentile?
Yeah. and we're becoming you know, we're more diverse than we are, you know, single white male or white males. So you would think that the gatekeepers would understand at some point, if you want to capture the market share, you're going to have to appeal to the women who not only are there more, but many of them have more money than men nowadays. I mean, they're more, you know, they're doing better in the workforce in many cases, and we are a diverse, you know, world of people of color, of different, you know, backgrounds and walks of life and faith and gender and everything. That if you're not going to capture these, then you're really shutting off massive revenue streams.
100%. And also, I think that the lead of How to Hack Birth Control is here, and she's going to pop into this interview in just a second. Her name is Xanthi Page, and she is amazing.
And we'll welcome her.
Yeah, let's do a little turn.
And they're going to turn there. I'm going to switch over here for just a second. Hi there, Xanthi. It's good to see you, and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Great to see you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us.
That's fantastic. So let's talk about you and how you first. Can you give us some of your background regarding your experience and how you got into the show business, and then from there, we'll take it to how you got involved with Sassy.
Yeah, of course. So I've been performing. I'm from Australia. I'm from a town.
If you can't tell.
I'm from a little town called Murwillumbah. I started doing, I think my mom put me into speech and drama lessons when I was about 6, and I started performing then, and I would do all of the performing arts festivals and absolutely loved it. Every year it was sort of my thing that I adored. And that I kept doing that through high school. And then when I finished up at high school, I graduated and I auditioned for the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney, which is NIDA. And that's sort of one of Australia's big acting. Yeah. We've got Kate Blanchett. So
yeah.
And I got in there and I got my degree in acting there. So that was 3 years. I did a play in New York at the Flea Theatre, which we had done with the director Adam Rapp. That was in 2016. Yeah, 2016. And then sort of came over here more permanently about 3 years ago. And yeah, it's been incredible. I love it here. I love LA. It feels like home. There's a lot of Australian trees as well, which really feel like home.
Welcome to the Northern Hemisphere and the other side of the pond.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. I know, yeah. I started in New York and that was not for me. Sorry.
No, LA is my home and I love it and I enjoy it. I want to ask you, so how did you and Sassy get together? You auditioned for the film.
Yeah. I have a manager over here, Kelly Tiffin, and she sent through the audition, and it was I think the first audition that I had done since the pandemic, since everything shut down, and it was like, oh God, oh, this is okay. Oh, and I read the script and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And the tone, really resonated with me, and I really loved Sassy's writing. It felt very sort of accessible, I think. And I loved the concept, and it felt so important. Especially, I think at the time, everything was kind of weird. Before
the election.
Yeah, so it felt especially important. And yeah, so I auditioned for that and then got the call back. And yeah, there were a few roles I taped for, but definitely Ruth, the narrator, was the one that I went, oh yeah. Oh, I like her.
And let me just add, she was great in her audition. There's rarely a time, or I should say it's very specific, when you see someone who's auditioning and they get exactly the part that you're trying to have people portray. Like usually in auditions, they'll nail it for like a line or two or whatever. But Xanthi just nailed it off the get-go. And I was like, oh, crap, like, should we call back these other people? Like, you know, and so, I mean, I'm very happy that she was able to do it, because not that the other people weren't great, but there's something very specific about her tone and delivery of the lines that I was like, okay, because you had to be likable while also saying sort of very sarcastic and sometimes not necessarily negative, but like cutting remarks. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But you still have to be a likable person and not, as you were saying, not a bitch, right?
Yes. I feel like maybe that's my MO in life. It's like,
be likable.
Be likable, boy.
Wow. I'm going to ask a follow-up question on this, but I do need to take just about 10 seconds to say I want to thank the Los Angeles Tribune for making the show All Things Rex possible, and for being able to have my guests here today. The LA Tribune, I invite people to, if you're watching from the LA Tribune Facebook page or the YouTube channel or wherever you're listening, to hit the like button, go ahead and subscribe, and enjoy this show and on all our other shows, not just my shows, but the other shows on the LA Tribune's TV network. And so with that, I want to throw the ball back to you both. I know that there are actors out there who are watching the show either live or who will watch the show, you know, in replay or on Roku TV, and they're going, oh my God, how does she do that? How does she nail an audition? And what is a director looking for when she says she was it? Because I mean, in other words, how do you prepare for a role like this? You know, I mean, maybe a little insight into your process of bringing to life the character, so that when Sassy watched your audition, she's like, nailed it. You know, this is the character. And then what are you looking for, Sassy, when you know you have characters and people come in and they're auditioning? How maybe the better question is, how could they blow it rather than what do they need?
That I could go on for many hours.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, because
I've done that too.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are people who are gonna blow it really severely badly, but there are those people who are just gonna be off. You know, they're not gonna hit the mark. And so maybe if you both can address that in a little bit, that would be real useful to the viewers who are in the industry and desperately wanting to know how they can improve.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially I was in a way quite lucky, because this script, you don't always connect with a script like that. You really don't. And a lot of that is in the writing, in creating characters. And I think just writing lines that sound like lines that humans would say, which you would be surprised how often that does not happen. Yeah. And so that is really helpful. I think that's testament to Sassy as a creator. But for me, then it is finding those added elements, finding the depth, sort of finding the light and the shade. And hi Australia. It's creating. You don't want it to be all one tone, I think, is the big thing, which it can be. And, you know, it's for the character that I'm playing. It's sort of, I guess you could think that it's just sort of like hello, here I am, blah, blah, blah. Here's the information. But she, you know, it's getting a little interest in there and finding a little edge. And it is, the little bite without the bitch.
If I can just ask a question, I'll do it off camera. Oh no, I won't. I'll do it on camera because I like to be on camera too. No, you know, oftentimes an actor gets a side, you know, one page or a couple of pages, 2-3 pages, you know, of scene 27 or scene 92 or scene 4. You know, sometimes they get the whole script. But what do you do if you have, you know, a couple of pages, say, from the middle of the script, and how do you just take a stab at what the character is? You create a backstory. Is there something that you do that you say, you know, I've got a minute and a half in order to convey this to the people who are watching me live or are on now in self tapes? in terms of how you approach the character and making that character real for that short period of time without, I mean, sometimes you get to read the whole script and sometimes you don't. So,
yeah, that's a great question. It is, I think a lot of it is you do have to create it for yourself. You kind of have to find a way to fill out all of that context that you might not have from the script, that you don't necessarily get. And you read it and go, oh, when she talks about, oh, that thing that was hard, you're like, okay, what was that thing? What was that? And create the scenario for yourself, because ultimately whoever's watching it doesn't know what it is that you've created, but they get whatever the emotional connection is, and they can see it. They see that sort of light up in your eyes and in your face, I think. Sort of creating that for yourself, sort of fill out the world.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sassy.
No, I was just going to say that one thing you're asking how an actor would blow it in an audition is not doing any of that would be the correct answer. Like we had over 6,000 submissions for this project,
wow.
Which I never told you, but we did. To be fair, there were 32 parts, but there's still a lot of submissions. And it was myself and a casting director, and then there was 6,000 submissions. So I roped in my fiance, the co-producer, into it too. And it's funny because he is an actor, and this was his first time on the other side. And he was like, what do I look for? And I was like, well, first look if they're on drugs. Like that's the first, like, cause no offense, some people are, but you want to you usually as a director watching it, like you kind of get a spark in the first 10 seconds, 5 seconds of an audition of whether or not this person has energy. Because that's really what it comes down to, right? You have to light up a big screen, a small screen with just your face or just your body. And so I really just look for that type of thing in an actor. And also like, being off book is awesome, but not necessary. But like, as I'm always flattered during auditions when actors are off book, but I'm like, oh my God, your life is so busy. Like, I'm so sorry. But like, if it's a short scene, like just think about the words that you're saying and don't just read them off as like, one, like, oh, they're upset. Okay, I'm going to be upset. Like, to actually think about the subtext of the lines. You don't have to give a day into it or even like more than a full hour, but to actually just process the words that are being said. Now, the other thing, the flip side of that is to directors or indie filmmakers who have auditions. And I have many friends who have asked me like, how do you get all these people to turn out for auditions? I'm like, well, I write character sides, like real character sides, right? Because how is an actor going to know what I want unless I tell them descriptively? And I find that a lot of character sides, especially for not the lead, will just be like female, 18, hot when she takes off her glasses, insecure, and that's it. And, or the same thing for guys. And so what I always take the time to do is to write out character descriptions that actors would want to play, so that if you read it, you would get excited about it and therefore maybe give a better performance for your audition. And therefore I'm choosing from a better pool of people who are actually invested in possibly being in this project. So it really goes both ways. I mean, you can get advice from both sides. Directors need to write better character descriptions and actors just, listen to what the words are.
We want to have fun. We want to play with it, I think is the thing. And so when there's something to play with, I think my slate that I did for mine, I was like picking up pieces of confetti off the ground because I was like, this feels, because I got a sense
in
of
one
it.
of the things, there's a game show sequence and there's this moment that's like, it's not supposed to be Oprah, but it resonates like what I don't even remember what the line was, but you had like confetti, like someone like threw confetti in the screen, which I thought was great. And then like the slate was her just like, here, I'm Xanthi Page. Like, so.
Wow. So, I mean, I think that was absolutely priceless. What both of you said about the casting process and looking into the performance of an actor and the characterization that the actor brings to the moment. I want to ask you both a slightly different question right now, and that is, who were your inspirations growing up in terms of? I mean, I don't know, Xanthi, if you do mainly comedy or I mean, that's not a fair question, really. I mean, because actors do anything that, Well, I don't mean it that way, but what I'm saying is comedy is. I will say this: comedy is infinitely harder than drama.
Yeah.
It's just. The challenges to pull off comedy, to get people to laugh, to have that involuntary response, and the difference between, say, a stand-up and something that's on film, where you either have the ability to put two people on the screen over there, or to cut in between close-ups and different things, to make that all work together and to pull it off, where you have a comedic performance from the characters, but also a comedic film that's then put together that gets the laughs in the right places. It's infinitely harder than it is to do drama. Drama's, I mean, not that it's easy, and then not that there isn't bad drama or bad action flicks or any of that stuff, but comedy is definitely its own.
There's a science to it.
Yeah.
There's truly a science to it. That's well put. So who are your comedy inspirations, and the very fact that you chose to do the hardest thing as opposed to the easiest thing, like everybody tells you, make a horror flick, be inside one house, out in the woods where, you don't have.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Could have saved a lot of money.
Do 20 minutes of full green screen.
Literally how to hack birth control. That's the horror version.
This is the sequel.
I don't know. Do you have people? Do we go first?
I don't. I mean, for me, I never really thought of myself as a comedic actor or necessarily a funny person, but I feel like my accent helps here. People are like, oh, that's funny.
Like, she's fine.
Yeah, I'm hilarious. But I think I didn't have any one person particular, but I did watch growing up a lot of British comedy. Actually, I watched The Young Ones and Monty Python, of course. They were big ones for me, for sure. So, I mean, in that way, it's a lot of like big, stupid physical comedy.
No, but British comedy is very refined.
But
that's
it is,
what I like about it.
Yeah. There's a subtlety to it, and a lot of it is kind of that wordplay, or it's finding that, which I love. I love all of that.
I think for me, my biggest influence, especially growing up, but still, is the Marx Brothers. Like I love the Marx Brothers, and I don't know why they resonated with me, especially when I was a little kid. Because like, what little kid is like, I want to watch a black and white film that has like terrible audio and no cinematic elements at all. But for some reason, I really enjoyed them, and I think it's because they see the world like I do, which is kind of like, this is also absurd. Let's make fun of everything. Like even with Fear Actually to me is just making fun of how I felt about Trump and the election. Like I was terrified, right? Like for good reason. But the same thing is like, if you're not going to laugh at it, then what's the point of being here? If you're not going to enjoy yourself in the situation. And that's what I really like about the Marx Brothers is even if you know their backstory, they grew up dirt poor and like schlepped it through vaudeville and these like around the South in the 1910s, like, with like their knapsacks and stuff. And they eventually broke in and became rich, but then thought everything was hysterical. So they just made fun of rich people, which I think is great because it's like, they have to find this absurd. Like they ate like maggot bread, and they're like making fun of like big dinners and all this crazy stuff. And I love that type of thing, like layered comedy. Another person I really like growing up was Tina Fey, of course. She's been such a pioneer for female comedy, like literally just clearing the way for everyone else. She's won 1 million awards. I was like, she deserves a medal, like the key to the city. I don't know.
Got it, Tina, please.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I got to tell you, this, boy, you talk about someone after my own heart. 4 years old, sitting on my mom's lap watching Duck Soup, said, I want to do that.
Right?
And as a kid, I reel-to-reel audio recorded all of the Marx Brothers movies, and I then transcribed all of them. And then, of course, they came out with different records. So I wrote a script piecing together all the different Marx Brothers movies. Nothing original, all just, Flagstaff doing this. And here was, and I sent it to Groucho, who said, well, I can't really do anything with it. But I did get back.
Wait, did Groucho Marx really write you back?
I got a letter back saying, I'm sorry, I can't do anything with your project. And he signed it at a slant and the whole thing. And I have no idea I have no idea where that letter is today. It may be in a picture album, in storage. But but when I was 18, I marched Hillcrest in Beverly Hills. The Bohini Mansion is where he used to live at the top.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so I hiked all the way up there from Sunset by foot. I nearly died getting up the hill by myself. Yeah. And I got all the way to his door and I went, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah, you're like, what's
strange kid showing up, knocking on his door.
Although he could like insult you and then your life would be a million times better. You're like,
There you
Groucho
go.
Marx insulted
You're like,
me.
I
Like
don't
the
care what
dream.
yeah.
I know. I missed my moment, but you're so right. I mean, the Marx Brothers sense of humor and the way of churning everything and having that.
Everything.
And you know, it's funny because as an actor, most of everything I've done is played killers, rapists, drug addicts, and now I play drunks and priests and grandfathers and pops and things like that.
I like how those all go together.
Yeah.
But I never really get a lot of comedy stuff. So but you are doing it both. You're making comedy, which is so difficult.
Yeah, I mean, editing, that's another reason. Just you're asking like tips for like people starting out. The other thing I would say is edit your own content. Like it is priceless, invaluable to have that control over it, because like performances can be made or broken in the editing room. And I'm sure you know this,
Yep.
like, especially like you did a performance, you're like, you watch it and you're like, what was that?
I do.
Yeah. But like editing, knowing pacing and all of that, I mean, it also helps you as a director. Like when we were shooting too, it was funny because my DP constantly was like, you're thinking like an editor right now. And I'm like, well, yeah, we got the shot. I know the 3 seconds I'll be using, so let's move on, because I can kind of see how it cuts together, but it didn't start out like that. I mean, when I first started, I had no real way of sort of visioning how what I was shooting could be then cut in the editing room. But especially with comedy is that, and if you have specific types of jokes, editing that is just, it's very powerful, and it just helps get the joke across. I mean, which is the name of the game for comedy. You can have the best jokes ever written, but if it's edited like crap, then no one's gonna laugh.
No, I mean that is the point. Two people can be on set, do a beautiful comedic performance, but if it's not cut right,
yeah,
it's not going to be funny. And if it's sometimes, when they have these behind the scenes things of movies, when you see the movie and you see the close-ups and you see, how everything is cut together, it's great. When you see the two actors standing there in the set with the lights and or the background, just these two characters off in the distance doing their thing, and you get to watch like the shows that, the movie shows on TV, like I can't think of a name now, like Hard Copy. I mean, I don't know what they are. Entertainment Tonight used to be one of them.
Sure. Yeah.
It doesn't sell the same way that when it's all cut together does. So the art of editing in terms of the storytelling is just truly important. So I wanted to also ask, we're going to be out of time in a little bit, but I want to come back to how can people see this movie first off, and then I want to ask Xanthi about, you play your character's name is Ruth.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And you're like the narrator of the movie.
Yeah,
So-
but she's like omnipresent.
Yeah.
Like she's there, she's not that. She's like, she's always talking. She's sometimes visually there.
When will I pop in? Who
You
knows?
literally don't know, and then she does, and it's great.
Am I in your refrigerator?
Yeah.
Who knows?
And this is where you get to address those topics, like how do you get a doctor to listen to you, or some of these other points that you were making that women are not being educated in.
Yeah, 100%. And so the trailer is going to be online on Wednesday, September 1st at 10 a.m. You can check it out at birthcontrolhacks.com. And as for where you can see the film, you have to kind of stay tuned a little bit, because we're having some talks with some distributors presently. So I don't want to jinx anything, but some good things will be happening over the next, I would say, 3 to 4 weeks, so we can have a follow-up with that. But you can check out the trailer at birthcontrolhacks.com on Wednesday. And if you just go to the website now, there's a lot of really cool pictures, behind the scenes. Speaking of behind the scenes stuff, you get info on Xanthi, you get info on the crew. It's I'm really happy with the way the website turned out too. I mean, I built it, but it was
So good.
It's great.
So I want to ask you, while it's on the screen, that birthcontrolhacks.com, that's all one word, not broken like that.
Yeah.
Okay, just so that the audience knows.
Less space between H and C.
Right. All right, fantastic. So how do you both maintain your attitude in a male-dominated business where so much is said against you? Because you're, in terms of making your career and saying, you know what, I'm going to stake my claim and I'm going to make my own breaks and I'm going to do it. And I'm sure if you're like most of us, we're going, it'd be nice if there were a little bit of help, or it'd be nice if it were easier, but it's not. And until it is, how do you maintain your attitude? How do you keep your outlook on what you want to do and what you want to create and getting it out there so that nobody can stop you or prevent you from doing that?
Great question.
Yeah.
I think, for me, a huge thing that, especially since I moved to LA, has been just building a network of incredible creative women. And there are so many, and it makes me cry on a weekly basis, just like how incredible all of these women are. Sassy, I'm so lucky to now know Sassy and have worked together. And I have friends as well who are writing and acting and directing. And that for me is so inspiring all the time to go, okay, there are amazing, strong women out there who share opinions with me and who want to create together and want to put these messages out there that are not otherwise being put out there, and deliver them in an accessible way,
Yeah.
in a way that people can go, oh, that, I think this is so incredible. How to Hack Birth Control is amazing because it makes it accessible. And I think the humor and the comedy makes it less taboo. It feels like it normalizes these things to talk about. And there's so many women. And for me, it's finding them and holding on to them and never letting go.
Yeah. Going off what Xanthi said, I completely agree. It's, surround yourself with women like you if you could find them. And what's very cool post Me Too movement is now there's room for that. Like when I first got started, even with Happy Holidays in college, like it was like you're the one female, and if you got there, no one else can have your spot, right? Because you're the one that made it. And it was very competitive and very kind of backstabbing. But then suddenly with the Me Too movements, I was like, oh, you too, me too. Oh, we're all going the same thing. There's room for everyone now.
Yeah.
And the other way that I stay so positive is I go on lots of power walks sometimes when I get very angry. Like Vince, my fiance, sometimes like I'll have a conversation with someone and they'll be sexist as crazy, and I'll be so upset. I'm like, I just have to listen to music and go walk. Like I'm just like go for a walk and come back. I'm like, okay, that was just one person out of so many people, and just let it go. And I also feel that like when confronted now, I still get it, from time to time, people just are condescending or I just hate what like, oh, you're so cute. And I'm just like, what is that? Like, I'm not a dog, but when people are like that, it's just kind of like, just try and brush it off. It's way easier said than done, but you have to just remember all the great people that are around you. And if you can kind of hold on to that, the haters don't really even penetrate.
Yeah. I recommend rock climbing as
well.
Rock climbing.
Yeah,
woo, mama.
That's a good idea.
No, that's a great answer. When I was, again, back when I was like 18, 19, my acting coach mentor at the time, who's passed away, used to take me to all the women in film luncheons. And so I got to meet all sorts of powerful women at that time. I think she was vice president of the organization for a couple of years or something at one time too. But being able to meet and understand that the industry is not all white men. I mean, it truly, when you realize how many women are actually in control of departments and in different parts of the industry, and I mean, your day is due. It is time. It is. I want to ask you two more questions. We're going to run a little bit long here, and it's okay with me if it's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine.
The first question is this, and that is, some people target an audience as opposed to being just general, in terms of just throwing something out there and hoping that it's widely accepted. Some people have a niche or a niche, that they do. What is the best way, or how do you target an audience, or what is the best way for you to reach your audience, both as a director and I think also as an actor, because our performances aren't in isolation; they are also out there. So you want the audience to feel what you're feeling and going through. So for both of you, separate questions, but you do understand the question. I mean,
yes,
and then how do you reach your audience?
I think
send a flare gun.
Yeah, it's mostly flare guns for me.
On what?
No, she's joke. I made a joke. I said, send up a flare gun.
But I didn't hear it. What was it?
Send up a flare gun into the
Oh,
sky. Do you know how? I mean, I would say for me, I mean, have good SEO, like have good search engine optimization, and try to not limit yourself, especially with my earlier stuff. I would write jokes that were very specific, like you had to very much understand what was being referenced to think it was funny. If you didn't understand it, you think it was hysterical. But the problem is like 1% of the population would understand it, and the other 90% is like, what was that? What did I just watch? So it's kind of about seeing if your work can appeal to a broad audience. When I write scripts, I have different friends who are screenwriters that I will always send it to, male and female, to get their feedback on, to see if something I'm writing isn't working, or to get a better, something I'm writing is working, but how to elevate it and make it better. I think that that's kind of the most important thing for actors and directors is looking for notes from people, constructive criticism from the right people, not from anyone, not from people who don't understand film or anything like that. They're like, I hate that, you know, it's like, well, that doesn't help me.
But why?
Yeah, exactly. But if you just kind of get people around you who are smart and understand filmmaking, and have them look at your work and your writing and what you do on stage, that I feel that, and listen, that's the other key thing. You have to listen to what they say and to digest it, and then do something better next time. That's always what I try to do, is like, this is great, next time I'm going to do better. And that's just, every project is like that, you know, not saying that what I've done is bad or anything like that. It's just like, you want to grow, right? You want to learn, and the more people you can access, the better, because the more people get to see your work. So that's the goal, is to get everyone to watch it.
Yes.
Wow, I love it. I love it. And you know, what I also really appreciate coming from both of you is this, and that is, a lot of people think knowledge is power, but knowledge isn't power unless it's applied. And what you just said about listening, taking some suggestions from credible sources, because obviously everybody has an opinion and not all of them are worth listening to, but from credible sources, to listen and then apply it and do better the next time. It's making those adjustments. It's learning from that experience. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. I mean, there are a lot of filmmakers who are so entrenched with their ego that they want to control everything. They want to do, you know, in a certain way, or actors too. I mean, I can say, you know, I've thought I was the best thing since sliced bread at certain times in my life, you know, and only to find out that I wasn't. But the but you know, somebody would set me straight somewhere down the line. So this is really valuable, because it's learning that when you apply things, you know, and listen to people of value, then you can really grow in your career, and in your ability to perform, both as a director, producer, writer, actor, whatever it might be. So that's really valuable. So to close us out, I just want you to say whatever you feel is in your heart, what you would like to say. I'm going to give you the last words, and then I'll say goodbye, and then I'll close out the show. But what is it that you really, if we haven't talked about or haven't addressed, what do you want our viewers and watchers to know right now?
What do you think?
I mean, for me personally, what just bubbles up is just how grateful I am that there are people like Sassy out there making things like this, making this sort of content, and putting messages out there that young women and women of all ages, and indeed men of all ages, can consume and learn, and not feel like they're being spoken down to, or not feel like these topics are uncomfortable or taboo, or that any of this is shameful. I think there's a lot of shame around women's bodies and women's reproductive rights. And I just think it's incredible that there are these sorts of projects out there that go, no, why? Why? This is not, on the flip side, it would not be the same at all. So this is amazing. And I'm incredibly grateful to have been a part of it, and to be able to share this with the world.
Yeah, and I am equally as grateful that Xanthi was a part of it, because she was amazing in this role. I can't wait for everyone to see it when it does come out. But again, check out the trailer on Wednesday at birthcontrolhacks.com. I think the other thing is just, to kind of piggyback off what Xanthi was saying, is to tell other women out there that, like, it's okay to talk about these issues. I really think that, like Xanthi was saying, that there's this stigma of shame and taboo-ness, so that talking about this type of stuff kind of comes with. And the way I look at how to hack birth control is that eliminates it from the equation. I recently watched a documentary on Harvey Milk, and it was talking about how when he was in the San Francisco City Council, that the whole thing was, well, being gay, you spread it. You, by being around people, they're going to make everyone gay, right? That was the problem. And it's like, okay, no, that's that. But now that is eliminated from the conversation, right? That pretense is gone because it's not real. And now we can have a real discussion about having more gay people in government or whatever. That's kind of the way I look at this. It's like, if you eliminate from the equation that talking about sex is a bad thing, or that even having sex before marriage is a bad thing, because I mean, who does that? I don't know. Like, when did that happen? Like 80 years ago, whatever. Like, but now if you accept, okay, like that discussion's over, now let's talk about everything else, then it just opens up so much more for the room. And I think that women should feel comfortable doing that. And the more that we do talk about this type of stuff, like contraceptives and our reproductive rights, or even just being a woman and being equal, the more that we talk about it, the less taboo it becomes.
Wow. Well, very powerful. And you are both truly both very powerful. And I'm so happy and so pleased to have you here today. It's been a real treat, real pleasure to listen to both of you, to be able to see some of your work as well in prior to you becoming here. And I encourage everyone who's watching and listening right now to go to the websites at birthcontrol.com.
Birthcontrolhacks.com.
I beg your pardon, birthcontrolhacks.com, and check out this work. It's truly exciting. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Thank you for both being here. I hope you have a fabulous time today with what you're doing and with the Burbank Film Festival and with all of your endeavors. Much love, peace, and blessings to you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having
Thanks
us.
so much.
This is great.
Thank you. All right. Bye for now. And with that, I hope you have enjoyed this show. Let me please say again, if you're watching, to be sure to listen. To be sure to like wherever you're watching. If you're on YouTube, hit the like buttons, hit the subscribe buttons, the Los Angeles Tribune, the Facebook page, my LinkedIn profile, wherever you are, go ahead and like it, leave comments, and please share the show, spread the word. I can't do it all, but you can if you help me. You can share it on your Facebook walls and in your social media. That would be a fantastic thing. I've got lots of great shows already that you can go back and watch on the YouTube channel and different places, and especially on ROKU TV. If you search my name, All Things Rex, the Los Angeles Tribune, any of those should come up. And I encourage you to go watch them. I've got some fabulous guests coming up in the near future. I've got a health expert coming up in the very next show. Somebody I've known for 5 or 6 years now, maybe longer than that. Just a powerhouse in terms of what he's accomplished with health and wellness, and his advice and his ability to he's a scientist, essentially, to help you live a better life is truly incredible. I have some comedians and filmmakers and actors coming up. I've got very powerful multimillionaire thought leaders and business people coming up. So I want you to stay tuned to All Things Rex right here on the Los Angeles Tribune TV network. And let me, as we close out, say that I am the author of this book, Life on Your Terms. It's a very powerful book for helping you to live life on your terms, to create the life that you want to live, so that you create your best life ever, whether that's health, happiness, wealth, relationships, or love. Life on your terms. Now, why do I tell you this? Because when you purchase this book, and you can get it from my website, rexsikes.com. Well, you actually can't, but you go to my website and it'll take you to Amazon. When you purchase the book from Amazon, the paperback or the hardcover, I'm giving away a bonus $497 free training to accompany the book. It's a video online training that you can get. You go to Amazon, buy the book, leave a review, rate the book, with that kind of thing. Take your receipt number, pump it into a special place, and you get access to this free training called the Mastery Loop. It's about how we master skills, how we move forward in our life, how we can learn to create new and powerful positive habits and wire in all the things that you're learning from the book so that you can transform your life in positive and powerful ways. So I really want you to go and get the book. And while you're at it, check out rexsikes.com. That's my website. It's my name. It's right there below me. There it is. There it is. How do I get there? How do I point to it? It's over there. There it is. And so I want to thank you very much for listening. I want to tell you that we stream live every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Mountain time, 5 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Eastern time, and then wherever else it is around the world. Your guess is as good as mine, but I hope you watch us, and you can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Periscope, LinkedIn, and of course, Roku TV. So thanks to the Los Angeles Tribune. I always tell people that if you consider everything a blessing, everything is a blessing. So celebrate everything. And with that, I'll see you the next time. I'm Rex. Thank you so much.